This is the Lockpicking Lawyer, and what I have for you today is the Kryptonite Bike Lock 3, known today as the K3. This is a really interesting lock because it's the very first self-contained bicycle U-lock. Now there were two U-locks prior to this, both made by Kryptonite, and neither one of them were produced in large numbers, the K1 and the K2. Both of them, however, required an external padlock to secure. This was the first self-contained unit. Now, while U-locks are very common today, back in 1974 when this was introduced, this was a revolutionary product, and it was leaps and bounds over what was then being used, which was cable locks and hardware store chain. Now, by today's standards, this is not a particularly secure product. Everything, with the exception of this little lock housing, is made out of 1/8 inch stainless steel. The lock housing is even thinner. We have a locking mechanism inside of this housing that's not very secure. I could almost certainly defeat it with something like a screw spreader. And as far as pick resistance goes, we have what is, I believe, the original Chicago lock company Ace cam lock. So something that could pretty easily be self-impressioned. However, back in 1974, tools like this were not very common, if they even made them at all. Frankly, I'm not sure about that. So, as far as locks go, I think this is interesting because frankly, it's the granddaddy of modern bike locks. Now, there was one other thing that was pretty revolutionary about this, and it doesn't have to do with the lock itself. Back in 1974, if you were carrying a lock for your bike, you'd put it in your backpack or you'd put it on a little rack that would be over your rear wheel. However, Kryptonite changed all of that with the introduction of this. It was a special bracket for holding this bike lock directly to your bike frame, freeing up your luggage rack and not making you carry this around. It doesn't seem like a whole lot, but it was a new idea when this was introduced. I think the bracket itself was 1978. And no one ever looked back. Pretty much every bike lock made today now comes with something like this. Now, as I said, these locks could be very easily opened with a self-impressioner, but back in 1974, they didn't have tools like this. At least they weren't very common and easy to get. So I'm going to do something a little bit different. I am going to single pin pick this old Chicago Ace tubular lock. So let's get a tubular lock tension tool in there. And while these are super easy locks to open with an impressioning tool, they're actually pretty hard to open using something like this because these locks were made to pretty good tolerances and they have tapered pins, which means we're going to have to pick each one, I don't know, a lot of times, probably 4 or 5 times. So let's just start going around this in a pattern. I don't know why I decided to go backwards. Let's start from pin number 1. Little click out of 1, 2, 3, click out of 4, nothing on 5, 6, or 7, click out of 1. This is probably going to take a while because we're going to have to hit so many of these pins so many different times. And I think this is important to do because those self-impressioning tools weren't around back in the 1970s. So this should give you a general idea of what it would have taken to pick one of these locks back when this was introduced. This was actually considered a pretty high security lock. Okay, little click out of 2. I'm just getting tiny little clicks, which is a testament to how well made these original Ace locks were. And by hitting these, I'm slowly advancing those tapered pins in there. And I'll know that it is close to being set when I start getting slightly louder clicks out of these pins. But for now, I am just advancing them by really tiny bits. Okay, I think we're getting close. We're starting to get slightly louder clicks out of these pins. There's a nice click out of 3, 4, nothing on 5, 6, or 7. Another nice click out of 3. Maybe we're not as close as I thought we were. Another nice click out of 3. 3 is advancing along nicely now. Nice click out of 2. Whoa, there we go. Finally got it open. And so one other thing I should note, this is actually spring-loaded. You have to compress the shackle a little bit before you can get it to lock up. So, took a little while to pick open. I think you can understand why someone might think that was a pretty high security lock as far as pick resistance goes back in 1974, prior to the use of tools like this. In any case, this is the Kryptonite Bike Lock 3. I hope you enjoyed it. This is one that I'm really happy to have in my collection. I just recently picked it up. So if you have any questions or comments about it, please put them below. If you like this video and would like to see more like it, please subscribe. And as always, have a nice day. Thank you.